Simple, but quite serious. Okay. Simple as in I think everybody should be able to identify. But serious as in it leads to no good. So okay, today we are going to look at chapter 8 bystander. Now, I think the most serious case of bystander, I took out the story and then I went into online to search how Kitty Genovese was killed. This is back in 1964. Yeah, you are talking about 60 years ago, and yet the crime is so serious. It was 3 a.m. That means it's the middle of the night, lah. 3 a.m. Kitty was a bar manager. So he finished the work, his shift, closed the bar, and she went home. So she parked the car to her apartment and then she walked. As she was walking back to the apartment from the car park, she noticed somebody following her. So she ran. As she ran, she was screaming for help. So obviously, apartment people got woken up, switch on the light, and start looking. What is all the screaming about? So then the man who was following Kitty caught up to him, right, and started to stab her. Already started to threaten her and stab her. But then because she was screaming as she ran, lights were already on. So when the man who was trying to stab Kitty saw the lights on and people coming to the window, the man ran away and hid. But then Kitty was already injured, already stabbed, already injured. Then the man waited and realized that nobody came to the rescue. So the man came back, walked back out to Kitty, and continued to stab her, rob her, and rape her. So it took 30 minutes. Later, the next day when police came, identified at least 37 people saw the murder. But yet, nobody took any action. This is where the concept of bystander effect came about. Okay, to help us appreciate the mindset of a bystander effect, I like the poem that is at the beginning of the chapter. At the beginning of the chapter, the first page of that chapter, under the number 8, you will see this. Under the title of the chapter, you will see this. As I was leaving the theater that night, I was told that I didn't see shit. And me being the person that I am, try to be friend with everybody, or maybe in this case, not try to be friend with everybody. Try not to get in trouble for myself. I say, see what? I didn't see nothing. Could this be the mindset of the 37 people or more who witnessed Kitty being murdered?
No, sir. Don't forget to unmute yourself, yeah. No, can't hear you. I don't know, from my side.
Okay, now can hear or not?
Okay. Now can hear already.
Okay, can see the slide or not?
Can.
Okay. Now, the story is a very serious story of bystander effect. And it is from there that it became an official psychology term. So that's why if you search the internet, bystander effect, you will see a lot of this. Good effect. Yeah, good effect. Now, what is bystander effect? It's written there, just knowing that other people were aware of the problem, even without knowing whether anyone had actually taken steps to address it, was enough to prevent any form of intervention. In other words, just because it is in public and have many people around who saw it, in other words, there are so many witnesses, to the point where when you have so many witnesses, it has an effect of making you less likely to do anything. That's called bystander effect. Okay. They did an experiment on this bystander effect. What they did was they next door they put volunteer. They bring volunteer into a room, but then they can in the room the volunteers can hear what is happening in another room next door. So next door somebody pretended to undergo epileptic seizure. So when the volunteer thought that they alone knew what was happening, 85% of the volunteer would quickly go and find help. That means they acted. Okay, they told somebody, they tried to inform somebody to take action. However, in other scenario where the volunteer in the room know that there are also other people around who overheard the epileptic seizure next door. So where volunteer believe that others elsewhere would also know about the seizure, only 1/3 did anything about it. In other words, the 2/3 who would have done something now didn't do anything just because they know that there are other people present who overheard the commotion. This is the experiment, and this is the bystander effect. In fact, in U.S. Department of Justice, this is according to U.S. Department of Justice, their statistics. According to their statistics, he say in 70% of the assault that they know of, a bystander is present. In other words, most assault are not done in total seclusion. They are in other words, they are witnesses. And yet it is being done. And yet in many of these cases, right, the person who was assaulted, there's no witness who will come forward to report. And also have bystander. More than half the robbery, right, are witnessed bystander, in other words. Now, this is amazing to realize. So I'm going to go through some of the characteristics. I compiled some of the characteristics of this bystander effect. Bystander effect, somehow it is found that when there are more witnesses, less people will do anything. More people witness, less people will take action. More likely to get, now in bystander effect, the people who know, in other words, the people who know the victim, or the people who know the person who assault, particularly the victim in this case who needed help, more likely to get help if asked for helper name. In other words, they know each other. Okay? Tension, the reason for bystander effect, because inside there is a tension between social responsibility versus individual responsibility, or rather social self versus individual self. What you need to, your social needs, versus your individual values. Social identity versus individual identity. On our own, we mostly will do the right thing. In other words, when we are on our own, there is no social pressure. Then our moral self will take action. Not all, but a lot of people, mostly will listen to the moral self. However, in a group context, in a social environment, in other words, when there are people around, the social stress, in other words, how you think other people will look at you, how you think other people will see you, how you think other people will respond to you. The presence of these very often create the conflict which lead to less people acting upon their moral values. So this is where bystander effect, where there is a struggle, there is a tension inside yourself between your social identity with your moral identity. Yeah. Well, why? Then you have to ask the question, why is people interested? Take the video and load up, rather than to help. What does taking the video and putting it up addresses? Correct, social fame. That's why you will notice this tension. There's too much stress or emphasis on looking good rather than being good. Social identity is about looking good in the eyes of other people. Personal identity is about being who I'm meant to be. If I'm good, I need to be good. So I act upon it. Social identity is about looking good. So there is this tension now between looking good and being. And it seems like, by the look of it, right, looking good seems to be easier to succumb to than being good, which later on we will see. There is a John Daly. He made a comment which is very true about this statement, that this tension that exists. Okay, but let's look at the characteristics first. More characteristics about this bystander effect. In bystander effect, they notice what is called diffuse responsibility. When more people around, then the responsibility for each individual become less, or rather it feel less. It's not meant to, it's not supposed to be any less in reality. Responsibility is equally as high. However, it feels less. Since everyone knows about it, in theory, everyone was responsible for it. And so since there are so many people who are responsible and who can act, then I feel that my responsibility then is lessened. Okay, I feel that in this case, the responsibility to act is shared with others, so others should do it. So I don't feel as heavy a burden. That's why the burden of responsibility get diffused in the presence of more people. Now, this is a very scary effect. Very scary effect. Now, the worst case is this. I'm often seen in bullying cases. If in a bystander effect, a person who is a bystander may and can have a greater chance of becoming part of the perpetrator. In other words, in a bullying scenario, bystander may end up joining the bully rather than helping the victim. Okay, why? Because of the social identity. When, especially in bullying effect, right, you want to identify with the so-called boss around. Usually, the one being bullied are the weirdo, right? Are the people most people would not like to be associated to. And oftentimes, the bully are the ones who may seem to have certain position. Is there a difference between responsibility of doing and the accountability of not doing? Okay. Okay. Now, first thing, Ian's question. First thing I need to ask, accountability of not doing. Accountable to who? To me, there are three forms of accountability. Okay? At least three forms of accountability. First, accountability is to yourself. So in a case of accountability to yourself, generally the person who succumb to bystander effect will lose their conviction towards their own personal moral values. If they succumb to bystander effect, later on they will feel guilty. That's accountability towards self. Second, accountability. If they are religious, they are accountable to their God or their religion or their belief system. First is accountability to their moral values. Second is accountability to their beliefs. Third is accountability to society. Because why? The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And in this case, failure to take responsibility leads to accountability to the fact that you did not exercise. But then, question, practical accountability is not so easy. So what I'm talking about in this case of accountability of not doing is quite subjective. Accountability is part of your responsibility. I mean, it's your responsibility if failure to do leads to accountability. Remember, we talked about this in boundary. It's your responsibility that needs accountability. And your accountability leads to reward or punishment. So if accountability to self, then your punishment is your sense of guilt. Accountability to your beliefs, then at the end of your life, when you are accountable to your God, then will there be a sentence, a form of reward or punishment or consequence? Accountability to society. Now, I don't think there is a system to impart consequence to this. However, in the long run, there will be consequence leading to deterioration of the society, the moral standard of the society. So I don't know, Ian, does that answer your question? Anybody, other people, do you understand what I'm saying to Ian's question? Or anybody got any comment or any input about that question? Very tough question, that one. Responsibility and accountability, yeah?
Yeah, digesting. Since all also what ability, accountability, responsibility. Yeah, I'm digesting as well.
Remember boundary class. Your role determines your responsibility. Your responsibility requires accountability. Accountability leads to consequence. Okay? So to me, accountability at the different level will lead to consequence. There is the internal personal level, there is your belief level, and then there is your society level. All will have consequences, but the society level quite subjective in the implementation or the interpretation of consequence. The belief level, you don't know it until the end of your life, where you have to give an account for your life. Personal level, difficult because we all can curb the guilt, which also got consequence. Eventually, you are less, your conscience is hardened. Okay? Yeah. Again, quite subjective. Okay, Chim. Yeah, a bit chim. Chim question and up chim answer. Okay, for the one that, I don't know, YMAC community is who? Pay one, is it? Just read an interesting article reported by World of Buzz entitled Singaporean Woman Saves Man from Suicide, but received negative remark from family and friends. All it took was giving the man a hug. It happened in the train. Okay. Yep. Well, yeah. Yeah, this is in a case like this, let me ask you, I mean, in a case like this, where an action did not bring about positive response from others around you, from the social side, right? From in other words, from people around you, from the society. What would you do? Give up? If I talked about the 3 types of accountability just now, how would you arrange in order of importance in your life and for your life? Personal, belief, and society. How would you arrange in order of importance? This will become a very important question which will impact how we will respond when we are in a bystander circumstances. I think nowadays people are afraid to help others because they are not sure whether it is gone or not, scam or not. Yes, I agree. But let me bear in mind, even if it's a possibility of scam, should you succumb to bystander effect? Should scam be a reason to justify you succumbing to bystander effect? So if you look at Jinli's arrangement, scam is under society, but your belief accountability and your personal accountability is higher than society accountability. In this case, scam should not deter you from not resisting bystander effect. However, it only means you need to be a lot more alert. Not succumbing to bystander effect doesn't imply that we foolishly go and believe everything that people say, knowing the existence of scam. You have to do the necessary, you have to perform the necessary due diligence to check the reality or the reality of the situation so that you avoid scam. Any other comment? Input about bystander effect?
No. No.
Okay, more characteristic of bystander effect. We tend to think this is a small thing, not big enough to worry about. However, is it this idea of small matter lah, never mind lah. Now, in what way small matter? Take for instance, people throw rubbish around. Small matter. People don't bother to recycle a plastic bottle. Small matter. People smoke in non-smoking area. Small matter. And often we do that, right? We see some things that are not right, but often we shake it off as a small matter. But we need to understand and remember, by the time it is big enough to worry about, it's too late. That's why bystander effect has the consequence of allowing a problem to become a big thing. For example, our environmental issue. For example, certain culture. For example, the dirty sea or the polluted river. Okay. For example, sometimes leaking, dripping pipe. Okay. We can have many. And the last one, bystander effect. When no one does anything, that send a sign that the perpetrator can go further. And this is very important for us to recognize the bystander effect, the negative bystander effect, the negative impact of bystander effect. The negative impact of bystander effect is that it will allow the thing to become big. It will allow the crime, the perpetrator to continue the crime. It will allow the criminal to be more daring. These are the ultimate characteristic. Now this one, I found it elsewhere. Why does bystander effect happen? What is the motivation for bystander effect? Now, before I go to here, motivation for bystander effect, let's have a little short reflection. Can we look and identify bystander effect around us? What are some of the bystander effect we see quite common around us? Some already I described. The ones that I see quite common, smoking. Okay, my fear of creating a scene and creating a problem outweigh my moral conscience to want to confront the person for smoking, especially smoking in a no smoking zone. Okay, so and also because why? Especially in a mall, but for instance, why? Because other people also see the fellow smoke. So you sort of like, oh, other people don't tell, why I tell. I go and confront after the fellow get angry and punch me. How? Very simple, common. What else? Other people. What other bystander effect have you encountered?
I think for my case, usually, I mean, Komta area, we have a lot of old people, especially homeless people. So, like they will be wandering around the bus stop and eventually become a norm. And I don't know whether I'm saying the right example, but anyway, sometimes you will see those homeless people really like in need of help. Like I came across one uncle, I don't know, the pants literally just covering the front part only. The back, everything is already torn apart. Yeah. But probably because of it's not so I don't know, say appropriate lah. I mean, like yeah. So nobody there to go up front to actually ask him if he need help or even get him a proper pants to change. So people are just walking off like normal. So this is what I seen lah. And yeah.
Okay, good. Good. Yep. Payone asks, what if when you are trying to save someone from a perpetrator who may possibly carry dangerous weapon? Anybody would like to comment on that question?
Don't know eh. Like,
It's a bystander effect question. That's what bystander thinks. You see, what bystander thinks is always they see the worst, right, as a reason for not taking action. So does this mean that, Payone, you should go and rush in and help the victim? Or is this a reason why you shouldn't go and do anything and rush in and help the victim? Does this mean that there's nothing you can do? Yes, yes. Is that story if it is true? Even if it is true, let's say it is true, is this a reason for you to not get involved? I think you are running, you are jumping too many. I think you have to understand the stages of decision making you must go through. Okay? What, why, and how? First, what is happening? Second question, what is the right thing for me to do? Why must I do it? Then, how will I do it? First, what is happening? What is the right thing for me to do? Let me ask the question. If you see there is a perpetrator, there is a victim. Question one, what is happening? What is the right thing for me to do? If I am the victim, would you like somebody to help me? So now that you see an event happening, should you help the person? Why? You remember the three accountability, belief accountability, personal accountability, and society accountability? That's the reason why you must act. Now you go to the third question. How? So if you have heard a lot of this story of people with dangerous weapon, if you heard a lot of these stories that involve scam, the question is not what or why. The question goes to how. The what and the why doesn't change. In bystander effect, the problem is they shut down the what and the why. What is the right thing to do? Why should I do it? Don't shut that down. What you should be doing is think about how. Call the police. You should respond in a safe manner. But the decision that had already been made is you should respond. A lot of people, just because they hear all this story, they should respond, become no. Now they are fearful, they respond. So I don't want to respond. Failing to remember that there are 1,001 ways to respond. But yet, your moral decision is only one. Correct? How many moral decisions is there? One. But how many methods are there? 1,001. And very often, bystander effect, when we succumb to bystander effect, we let all the story shut down our moral decision rather than challenge our methodology, our method of response. Just because we can no longer respond in the normal, usual way, very often we shut down our moral decision rather than change our method for response. Same thing with I see people smoking. Yes, I fear the person may retaliate. But is confrontation the only way I can convey the message of not smoking? Can there be other ways? Right? But instead of shutting down my moral decision. Now, why we do that? The other thing is very interesting for us to think about. Why do we do that? Because it's easier to shut down our moral decision. Pop, no need to think anymore. No stress inside my head. I don't have to stress anymore. So I shut down the stress. And when I shut down the stress, I succumb to bystander effect. It's easier to do the wrong thing. Or rather, it's easier to do nothing, which is the wrong thing. And so we are seeking to do easier things. In fact, that is our default. That is what goes on in our mind. We seek easy. We are not seeking what is right. We are seeking what is easy. Any thoughts, any comment, or any other input about some of the other bystander situation? Another common bystander situation I encounter driving on the highway. Every time I pass by, a car broke down. Very common in my mind is, oh, so many cars saw, yeah, other car will stop one lah. Okay, quite common. Other car will stop and help them one lah. Okay. It's many years of bystander effect until recently only I'm beginning to fight. There's this struggle. Because why? Because of the personal conviction. Okay? The consequence of guilt. So every time I encounter again, it reawakened the guilt. It came to a point where I begin to, okay, tell myself, no, if I don't act now, right, I will get even more numb. Anybody else got any more example of common bystander effect you see around you? In college? Anybody can see in college?
I think now a bit hard to relate since everyone stuck at home. It's been a while since we social with people already.
Look at the past.
Yeah.
Last time as a student,
I think one sharing now college even more so lah. Now everyone is at home. Now everyone online class, very easy to cheat in exam already. So everyone is just cheating now. So I mean it started off as bystander, then it full blown turned into a new social trend.
nobody wanted to rock the boat. Nobody wanted to put in the effort to nobody want to take lead, because the take lead is high responsibility and great effort. Yeah. Okay, any other last one? Anybody? Otherwise, I will move on. Okay, I'm going to move on. Common reason for not coming to the aid of a victim. These are some of the victims. When I read this, many I can identify. First one, just now we raised it up. Fear that the personal risk of harm is too great. What if the person have a weapon? What if the person turn to me? Okay, yep. Second, feeling that one doesn't have the strength or other traits needed in order to be able to help. Who am I? I'm a little kid. I'm a nobody. Okay, I have no rank. I have no authority. In a work context, this usually happens. As a new employee, this usually happens. Third, assuming that others are better qualified to help, usually connect with number two. Okay? He's the supervisor. He has the authority, he has the power to do. 4, watching the reaction of other witnesses and assuming the situation is not as serious as you initially thought because they don't seem alarmed. You see other people, other people are not stressed. Why are you stressed? Oh, maybe it's not that serious. So, yeah, why I so stupid? Why I stress? Influenced by the majority respond. Influenced by other people's response. Okay? So it's easier for us to diffuse our stress because we naturally want to avoid stress. So when we see other people are less stressed, we prefer to join them than to continue with the stress. And 5, fear of becoming the target of aggression or bullying. Fear that the person will turn their aggression to you. Now, I don't know. When I read all 5, I can identify with all 5. Okay, I have felt all 5. For me, this is my upbringing. When I was young, this is what I've been told by my parents, especially my mother. Okay, and this is surprising. In this book, it's stated very clearly, even though this book is a Western book, it's not written in an Asian culture. He says this is a natural norm, cultural norm, which means in Western country, this is commonly said that we are not to be busybody. Don't go and be busybody and get the dirt splash onto you. So avoid. Okay, very common. So how? Now the question then is this, okay, how can we increase our likelihood to help? How can we reduce our blindness caused by bystander effect? How can we increase the increase the likelihood of doing the moral thing, the right thing? One, this is suggested by an article. One, know the victim, but very often we do not know. Okay, so not very helpful. 2, have training in personal defense. This one may be a bit helpful. If you have training in personal defense, then you're more likely to help, which is true. I still remember at one time I observed an accident, and there were victims of the accident, a car accident, and the victim was on the ground bleeding. And one of the deterrent for me is I don't know first aid. In fact, I remember at one time I was driving with Elizabeth. When we saw the accident, Elizabeth immediately called out to me to stop the car. And she went over to see what she can do to help. When we reached there, another nurse who knows first aid, another person who knows first aid, already helping the victim. So then Elizabeth and I, we walk away. So knowing the right skill may help to reduce bystander effect. So first aid could be one of the skills to overcome bystander effect in road accidents. Or in fact, in any situation where injury is incurred. It could be in an attack, then people are injured, or it could be an accident, people are injured. So having a first aid skill is good. Those of you who have gone through personal defense like karate, taekwondo, jiu-jitsu. Yeah, that will be also good to give you the confidence to overcome. They have medical training or experience. So this tool is very useful. So many of you are still young. So it's worthwhile to do. Another thing you can do, my advice also, another thing you can do, ladies also, carry an umbrella in your car more frequent, because your umbrella can be a weapon for defense. So with an umbrella, I not only have an umbrella, I have an umbrella and a stick in my car. And the stick, I shape it until it looks like a walking stick. Okay, it's like a tongkat. So in a situation where I observe any people, right, attack or any perpetrator situation where there's a victim, right, the presence of the stick will probably help in overcoming bystander effect. 4, if you have been a victim before, and if the perpetrator was caught and held responsible, then you will find confidence to help other victims. Now again, I'm not going to encourage each of us to be a victim so that you have more confidence to help. So 1 not applicable for most of us, 2 or 4 not applicable for most of us. So 2 and 3 may be worthwhile for us to look into, and 1 more, 5. Think the person is deserving of help. In other words, this is a moral development issue. We can develop our sense of moral responsibility. We have to spend time to nurture our moral responsibility to others, to helping others. Now, this also we can do. The more we are able to develop our moral self, then the conviction that we have will help us to overcome bystander effect. So what can you do? 1, practice seeing a larger picture. Don't see your world as the only world. See the world as bigger than yourself. See the world as bigger than life on this earth. See your world, your own personal safety as, don't only see your personal safety as the most important thing, as the picture. Then when you are seeing the world as bigger, you will start reaching out. You will start expanding your world. You will begin to see that personal safety is only one small aspect of life. And then practice volunteering. In other words, now not only you see a bigger world, now you practice helping others. The more you practice helping others, then helping others become easier. And when you have a habit of helping others, then your habit of helping others will contribute to overcoming bystander effect. Okay? So any question? That completes. Oh, I have 2 more slides only. But the last two slides, I leave it to the end. So any question or any comment or any input or any contribution about bystander effect or willful blindness due to bystander effect? Others, any question? Okay, I want to end with these two slides, which is supposed to help us in our mindset. Our mindset is the beginning of long-term change. The first thing we must begin to change our mindset is this. Now, we have heard of Edmund Burke saying the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. But here, John Darley says this: the greatest evil always requires large number of participants who contribute by their failure to intervene. In other words, when there is a bigger group and it reduces individual moral responsibility, which leads to failure to intervene, this can contribute to great evil, the greater evil. The greater evil not only so much because of the significance of the significance of the crime, but also the impact on the moral identity of the people involved. It creates a reduction in the morality, the moral standing of the society. The more people fail to intervene, the more it impacts, right, the moral standard of the society. So we need to realize that. And in recognizing that, we must not join the large number of majority. The second mindset we must need to work towards on changing is to recognize that our moral mind, in other words, mind that consider the moral issues, is not our default mind. Why? The moral mind often awakens stress. It's stressful to struggle with the moral issues in life. So, like just now I have said before, it is always easier for us to take the easy way out, not the right way out. In other words, it's easier for us to do the easy thing rather than the right thing. And that's why John Darley says high stress tend to distant moral reflection. In fact, the more stressful the situation, the less moral we become. Or rather, there's a tendency to be less moral. Why? Because we avoid the stress, the pain, the struggle. And moral issues are often difficult. But we have to begin, in other words, in our mindset, to choose right over light. That's why I always use this phrase before. Right before light. Right is more important than light. Light is easy. We all like to have an easy life. We always like the easy way. But we must begin to recognize that right must come first. And if we develop a habitual mindset of right over light, then we will have we will be more likely to overcome bystander effect or blindness due to bystander effect, because that is the easy way.